This is CBC Compass.
This is Thursday, January 11th. Here's what's happening now on Prince Edward Island. 2 years later than expected, grade 10 students on PEI will be writing a new literacy assessment test, and the results will set the standard for future exams. An added bonus for the Harvest and Prosper project, the pilot project connecting Prince Edward Islanders in need of jobs with work on farms, has led to full-time jobs. And the flu season in Canada is shaping up to be a nasty one, and the peak of the season hasn't even arrived yet. Why is it so bad? Thanks for joining us tonight on Compass. I'm Louise Martin. There has been a lot of talk over the last day or two about the weather and the possibility of freezing rain, and a lot of it in the days ahead. So that's where we are starting our program tonight. Let's bring in Jay Scotland for the very latest. Now, Jay, I know the information on the system has been a little uncertain, so what's the latest?
Just a little bit uncertain.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of uncertainty with the guidance, with the forecast models that as meteorologists we look at, in particular with the track, where exactly the storm is going to push across Atlantic Canada. And when we're talking about freezing rain, we're often talking about a very narrow line or band with which we'll see that icy precipitation, and even a deviation in just a few kilometers east or west can have a big impact into what we see falling. So special weather statement still in place across the island. Friday, winds will continue to pick up, especially into the evening hours tomorrow. Some moderate rain will start to work in. Then on Saturday, the big risk is heavy rain. That risk is across the island, and that could result in a few basements taking on some water. Make sure your sump pump is working, but ice pellets and freezing rain still possible. I want to show you again, we were talking about this yesterday, we'll show you again today, the uncertainty in the forecast models. These are today's latest forecast models. This is the American model. You can see that freezing rain risk cutting across Prince County, up west over western PEI. There's the European forecast model, and we're looking at predominantly rain and heavy rain falling across the island. 20 to 40 locally over parts of western PEI, upwards of 50+ millimeters of rain possible. So freezing rain still a possibility across the island. At this point, I will say the best bet for that on Saturday will likely come for the most significant freezing rain. There's a risk across the island, but as we look to western PEI, heavy rain, though, could be an issue for all, in addition to some brisk winds. Showers working across the island at the moment, not falling as snow, no, and that is because we are looking at temperatures that have been rising all day between 3 and 5 degrees. And here's a quick look at your 24-hour outlook. By tomorrow afternoon and evening, those temperatures will be sitting at 10, 11 degrees on the plus side, but that heavy rain will be working in. And on Saturday, still that risk for some freezing rain for parts of PEI.
Thanks, Jay. Well, Summerside has been on a lucky streak lately when it comes to the lottery, that is. A ticket sold there for last night's Lotto 649 draw is worth $1 million. The winner played the Atlantic 49 game and matched all 6 numbers. Well, last week, a woman from Tyne Valley picked up a check for $1 million. She won after buying a ticket in Summerside last November. Grade 10 students across the province will soon be writing a new test. It's a provincial assessment in literacy. It's been in the works for years now and is rolling out later this month. Sarah McMillan has more.
When students sit down to write this test in 2 weeks' time, it won't be for credit. The Department of Education will use the results to set the bar for future years. But going forward, students may be required to pass the test in order to graduate.
I'm not sure if there's a concern. But when we do a provincial assessment, which is usually measuring, giving a test at one grade level, having all students at a grade level take a test, then that data gives us a lot of information. We can do an overall how students are doing. We can look at different strengths, different weaknesses, and it can help identify concerns if they are there.
This will actually be the department's second time piloting a literacy test. In 2015, it announced plans to add one the following year. The department designed an online test, but when students sat down to write it 2 years ago, there were problems with the technology. Some students were unable to even write their answers. It left the department with little to no data. Since then, they've returned to old-fashioned paper and pencil, which delayed the process.
Well, because we had to go back and take a look at the assessment and basically determine what that's going to look like now in paper and pencil. So there's a lot of creation involved. You have to look at timing, what's it going to look like on the paper.
McDonald said it is possible the department will turn this into an online test in the future, but in the meantime, they didn't want to delay the process any further. Grade 10 students will write this pilot test January 24th. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Last night, we told you about a shuffle in the PEI cabinet. It's increased speculation about the next provincial election and when Islanders may be headed to the polls. The talk is it could be earlier than expected. With more on how early and how parties are preparing, here's our political reporter, Kerry Campbell. Kerry.
Yeah, Louise, PEI has a fixed date set in legislation for the next election. That would be either in the fall of 2019 or the spring of 2020. It depends on when the next federal election takes place. But the Premier is always free to call an election whenever he chooses. And, you know, even before yesterday's cabinet shuffle, we had speculation that this election would come early. With the cabinet shuffle now, those yard markers, are moved even further ahead. Have a listen here. This is what the Green Party is preparing for.
So we have contingency plans on everything from a spring this year election. Our most likely, the most popular thought was that it will be in the fall of this year. We have a lot of work in place, but we have a lot of work left to do. We're an emerging party, and despite the surge of interest, particularly since Hannah got elected, we still don't have the ground game that the established parties do, but we're catching up quick.
Kerry, what has to happen before the next election?
Well, we already have new electoral districts which have been drawn up for the next election. Government still has to pass changes to the Elections Act, though, and that's to allow for a referendum on electoral reform, which the Premier has promised. He has said those changes will be debated and passed in the legislature this spring.
And we heard the Greens say they think the call could come right after that. So what are the other parties preparing for?
Well, Louise, Islanders will remember in 2015, we saw that election come early. The PCs actually had to move up a leadership convention to try to be prepared for that. In that election, their leader didn't end up winning his seat. So their new leader, James Elward, he says the party is planning to have meetings in every district by the end of next month. They will be ready. But here, listen, he talks here about why he thinks government should stick to some fixed election date rather than have a snap election.
It's just not the people that are running that it affects. It affects community groups, it affects families. The other component of that too is we're all hoping that we can get more females to run for public office, and it's a proven fact that if you have a snap election, in many cases it's harder for those individuals to literally put their life on hold to run for office.
And Louise, the status of women agrees. They say it's easier for a variety of reasons for women to run in a fixed election with a long lead-up time rather than in a snap election. One final note here on the NDP. They just lost their leader. They're choosing a new leader in April, but the New Democrats say, the further along this election is, the better for them in terms of their preparedness.
Okay, thanks for this, Kerry.
You're welcome, Louise.
That's Kerry Campbell reporting tonight. A pilot project connecting Islanders in need of jobs with work on the farm has paid off for some people in a big way. The project ended in December, but some of the participants have been offered full-time jobs this winter. Nancy Russell reports.
It may be January, but there is still lots to do here at Canadian Nectar Products. These are pear trees, and they will all need pruning before the trees bloom again in the spring. These employees started here as part of the Harvest and Prosper pilot project. Now they're working full-time.
I thought it was just a week, perhaps a couple weeks, but some of these kids really have a passion and an interest in farming.
The Harvest and Prosper project helps newcomers, people on social assistance or disability support to find short-term work in agriculture without affecting any benefits. Of 32 participants in the program, more than a dozen have landed full-time jobs after the pilot ended in December.
These kids in particular are making a big effort to get here every morning, and they're quite serious about it. And again, I'm thrilled to have them.
These new employees at Canadian Nectar are also thrilled.
Been an opportunity to get back to work, full-time job. I have a 4.5-year-old son, and it's giving him a better life.
The pilot project was funded by the PEI government with partners in the community.
One of our primary missions and mandate is to reduce poverty on Prince Edward Island. And so being able to, out of this initiative, being able to see that there are a number of families whose lives are going to be changed permanently, that's a huge success.
The pilot project is also helping PEI farmers who often find it hard to fill these kinds of jobs.
I believe it's a super positive thing that this is happening, because as we have more people that try something new and realize that, hey, I do actually fit in agriculture, then it gives them that opportunity to have full-time employment.
A final report on the pilot project is in the works, with the hopes that the program will continue.
It gets people off social assistance and back to work, and it's fantastic.
Work that Brooke McIntyre calls his best job ever. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Alliston.
The Jack Frost Festival is coming up next month, and this year there are some new events. There will be the ice slides and snow sculptures as usual, but at night there will be something called Jack Frost After Dark. That's live entertainment and music, and there will be a fireworks display at night as well. Organizers say they are expanding to attract people of all ages.
I'm hoping to engage as many islanders as possible with Jack Frost, as well as make winter fun again. I'm also praying for lots of snow. Of course, that's what I spend most of my time hoping for this time of year. But I just really want Jack Frost to be more meaningful to everybody in the community, and not just young families. I want it to be something that everybody looks forward to and wants to be part of.
The festival runs from February 16th to the 18th, and tickets are available right now. Well, in many parts of the world, the flu virus is hitting hard this season, and Canada is no exception. Here on PEI, we've told you about the dozens of confirmed cases, and doctors say the numbers haven't even peaked yet. So why is this season so bad? Christine Birak has the explanation.
A glimpse into what it's like inside emergency rooms across the country this week. Waits are long, beds are full, and staff are scrambling to keep up.
This is all I'm seeing these days is flu, flu, flu. I have so much flu.
So we're heading into the lab, and this is where testing is done.
More than 11,000 cases of flu have been confirmed in Canada so far this season. It's not a pandemic, but it is unusual. Instead of a single flu virus sickening people, right now there are two, and one of them, H3N2, offers far more misery, especially for the elderly.
We tend to see more severe seasons, we tend to see more outbreaks, more hospitalizations, and more deaths.
When a virus like H3N2 gets into your system, its goal is to trick your cells into making copies of it. How sick you become usually depends on how long your immune system takes to recognize the invaders. If it's seen the virus before, it works quickly and you don't get sick. The flu shot tries to offer the immune system a preview of what to look for, but viruses mutate to avoid detection, and
H3N2 tends to change a bit faster than other viruses.
This year's flu vaccine should have protected people from H3N2, but the bits of virus that go into the shot are grown in eggs, and at some point in the process, it mutated. Still, experts say the flu shot offers some protection.
There's emerging data to suggest that this might mitigate the severity of one's infection. So if you're going to get this sick from influenza, if you had the vaccine, maybe you'll only get this sick from influenza.
Most people here would have opted for less sick. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
And if you're a dog owner, you may want to keep an eye on your pet for signs of the flu as well. The Atlantic Veterinary College says it hasn't seen it yet on PEI, but 2 cases of canine influenza were recently confirmed in Ontario. Now, the virus is highly contagious among dogs, and it's good to know the symptoms, so if it does happen, it doesn't spread.
If you're concerned about your dog, you're noticing coughing, sneezing, discharge from the nose or the eyes, please call your veterinary clinic and ask for information. And we're always here at Atlantic Veterinary College in Canada to help as well.
Vaccines are available for dogs, but it's not recommended unless your dog is high risk. If you do have concerns, you should call your vet rather than showing up at an office to limit the potential spread of the illness. Well, much more still to come on Compass tonight before 7 o'clock. Coming up, another winning $1 million lottery ticket bought in Summerside. We will talk to the Atlantic Lottery Corporation about what feels like a lucky streak for that community. Plus, tonight we'll tell you how the Canadian Navy is trying to attract new sailors. And later, given the recent spotlight on sexual harassment within the theatre industry, we look at how local groups are focusing on prevention and protection. That's still to come on Compass. Much more, including weather forecast, coming up next with Jay. Stay All right, a lot of you have been asking about what the weather is going to look like over the next couple of days because we are sort of tracking what could be the potential of a lot of rain, right?
So looking at the forecast models.
Flip a coin.
Oh, rain. Oh, freezing rain. Makes my job a little frustrating.
No kidding, yeah.
So usually when we get to be 2 days out, this is usually where the forecast models really come into alignment. Did not do that today. It's almost an even spread right now. I would say better chance for more rain than freezing rain here on the island, but there still is that possibility. I am going to lay it out as best I can with what I've got. You can only work with the tools you're given, and here's a quick look at that risk. And as you can see, 25 to 40, locally amounts topping 50 millimeters possible across the island, but some of that, maybe a few hours of that rain, could be falling as freezing rain as we look up to Prince County. So up west. Now, this is not to say we will not see some freezing rain at least across the island, but in terms of a significant amount that could result in slippery roads and some power outages, I think up west would be the best bet for that. Let's take a look at the live shot right now into Charlottetown. We did deal with a little bit of rain today of the non-freezing variety. We were warm enough that it at least wasn't falling as snow. And I think the warmth after the deep cold we saw certainly over the weekend and into Monday, so really to kick off this work week, the warmer temperatures were at least welcome change. There's a look at our temperatures right now across the Maritimes. We're sitting at 5 degrees in Charlottetown, 5 in Moncton, 4 in Fredericton. Take a look at these temperatures over Nova Scotia. 7 in Halifax, 9 in Greenwood. Yarmouth sitting at 8 degrees right now. We'll see temperatures by tomorrow late evening, anywhere from 10 to as warm as 12 degrees here on the islands. That'll be into the evening hours tomorrow. Not quite as warm through the afternoon, but still well above where they should be. 9, 10, 11 degrees possible by late afternoon. Already a few degrees above the freezing mark, and that's thanks to the nice southwesterly wind we're seeing at the moment. Those winds will continue to increase. That's going to drive those temperatures up further, although that is as an approaching storm system is moving in. These southerly winds and this warmth would not come without a bit of a mess, and we're going to see that mess, really the heavier rain arriving Friday night and on Saturday, just as that cool air is starting to work back in. Works into the surface before it does above us. That cool air is very dense, very heavy, and that combination of warm and moist air above a cold surface could mean some icy conditions, which is why we have that freezing rain risk in across the island. Non-freezing rain, though. Generally, normal rain, not snow, don't have to shovel it. This is the kind of rain we really don't mind. It's not too heavy either. Working across the island at the moment in the form of showers, that is tapering off, and by the middle part of the evening, we'll be looking at just a mostly cloudy to overcast sky. So that is the round of rain we're seeing today. Storm system to our north and west, that starts to draw in some moisture, but it's really a second storm system that's going to start to move in. Now, this is as we get into Friday evening. You can see some showers, some heavier rain arriving later in the evening, showers arriving as early as late afternoon, and then storm system number 2 will start to move in. 8 a.m., it's rain across most of the island on Saturday, but you're seeing that freezing rain risk to our north and west as we look up towards Prince County. We'll watch for that potential to start working as the cooler air starts to move in throughout the day, Saturday afternoon and evening, but I think the longest duration of freezing rain will be possible over western PEI, and that is where you've got the best bet of seeing some slippery roads and maybe even seeing some power lines affected as well. We'll have another update tomorrow. Hopefully these forecast models start to come into an alignment. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. Freezing rain is possible on Saturday, so if you have travel plans, be sure to check back tomorrow before we get into the weekend. There's a look at our overnight conditions tonight. Temperature 5 degrees from Cavendish up west under a mostly cloudy sky. Those showers will wrap up quite early this evening. And we'll see afternoon temperatures around 8 degrees for central and western PEI, but it warms up further tomorrow night as those winds really start to pick up out of the south. Central, eastern PEI from Charlottetown and east, we are looking at temperatures around 6 degrees into the overnight hours tonight. 7, 8 degrees, though, by early tomorrow morning. Into the afternoon, between 9 and 10 degrees. And then late afternoon, evening, we'll see those temperatures up to the 11 to 12 degree range. Now, it will become quite windy, gusting to 70 kilometers per hour late afternoon and evening. This is a southwest wind we're seeing for most of the day. And that wet weather arriving as showers by late afternoon. Heavier rain later in the evening. Could get soggy. Temperature will be falling on Saturday, and that is why we're still not 100% certain on who's going to see significant freezing rain, but freezing rain conditions are possible later in the day, certainly on Saturday. And as we take a look at the long-range forecast, we're back to more seasonal temperatures in through the early part of next week, and certainly by the end of the weekend. Let's take a look at our national temperatures now, and you can see that big ridge in the jet stream over Atlantic Canada. That's why we're seeing the warm-up. That does come with a bit of a mess, though, and we'll see that arriving in the form of heavy rain tomorrow night through Saturday. Let's take a look at this picture taken over the Confederation Bridge. Beautiful, beautiful shot. I believe they're about 7,000 feet up to snap this picture. Paul, beauty of a shot. You can see those chunks of ice really being cut into those squares, almost perfect rectangles, like little miniature hockey rinks. Well, I guess they'd be quite large, not miniature. Floating on the Northumberland Strait because of the Confederation Bridge. That is an incredible photo. Thank you for sending that one in. Compass at cbc.ca to get us those pictures by email. You can do that through social media as well.
Thank you, Jay. Well, many parts of Canada have had very cold weather the last few weeks, and that's been causing all kinds of problems. In Ottawa, it's causing something you may not expect: many cracked windows. Stu Mills reports.
Mikko, 40, is still getting used to his brand new house on Remora Way. The family just moved in last February, so the weather last month was some of the coldest they or their house have ever seen.
I think it was right after we had the minus 35 temperature outside.
That's when Forty noticed a crack in his dream home.
We opened up the drapes to let some light in. We noticed the crack in the window.
It's not a small one either, but he thinks there's a simple explanation.
It was really cold outside. New build, of course, there's lots of adjustments happening with the framing of the house.
On a Facebook page for residents in this Half Moon Bay neighborhood, more cracks begin to appear. Another Barrhaven neighbor who doesn't want to go on camera says he too had a broken window, which he took to the builder, Mattamy Homes. But not everybody agrees that cold weather is the cause of Barrhaven's window pane.
There has to be a reason. For every problem, there's a reason behind it. I say windows shouldn't crack.
Neil Card has been a builder and now a building inspector for decades.
Cold weather has nothing to do with it otherwise. I mean, I've lived in northern Alberta and Winnipeg. If that was the case, then windows would be cracking everywhere.
Card says he suspects carpenters didn't leave enough space between the window and the frame to allow for winter contraction. So when the temperature drops, the frame shrinks and clamps down on the window casing like a vise.
It goes back to whoever installed the windows.
Mattamy Homes says they're talking to Geldwin, the company who makes the windows. We're working with our suppliers of the windows to expedite any claims made from our customers and to get the inserts of the glass swapped out as quickly as possible. Michael Forty says he'll be one of those customers expecting new glass in the next few weeks. In the meantime, with another cold snap on the way, he's hoping he doesn't discover any more surprises. Stu Mills, CBC News, Ottawa.
Coming up, this was the scene last week in Summerside when Shelley Campbell celebrated her $1 million lottery win. Well, there's another $1 million winner here on PEI. We'll get the scoop from the Atlantic Lottery Corporation after the break.
Hi, I'm Mitch Cormier.
And I'm Matt Rainey. Join us weekdays for Island Morning. Friday, busy week in PEI politics. Premier Wade McLaughlin made big changes around the cabinet table. Our political panel will weigh in. Paul, Mary Lynn, and Dennis joining us around our table on 96.1 FM.
Another $1 million lottery ticket has been sold right here on PEI. The Atlantic Lottery Corporation says the winning ticket was purchased in Summerside, and that is the same place as the last winning $1 million ticket. We thought this was pretty exciting news, so we asked Molly Cormier of ALC to join us from Moncton. Thanks, Molly.
Absolutely.
So, big news. Has anyone come forward yet?
So someone did come forward just this afternoon who came into our Moncton head office believing that they had the winning ticket. So we have conducted a win confirmation process and confirmed that they are the winner. And we will be making an announcement in Summerside on Monday announcing the name of the winner and their story.
Okay, and we can't give away too much, but you can confirm that this person is from PEI?
They are from PEI, yes.
So that is 2 new millionaires on PEI in just less than a month. So is there any stats on how often this kind of thing happens?
Well, the lottery is random, as you know, so it completely depends on the draw and just the random numbers being pulled. I can say that you are correct. Shelley Campbell of Tyne Valley PEI won $1 million on Atlantic 49. So she won that on a draw that took place in November. She claimed her prize in December, and we had her celebration just recently in the month of January. We also had 6 major winners of $10,000 or more from PEI just in the month of December. So it's very exciting. The lottery is random, but we've had a lot of winners recently from the island.
That is very exciting for Islanders. How long does it typically take for someone to come forward, Molly?
That's completely random as well. It would just depend on the case or life circumstances. For example, Shelley from Tyne Valley, she wanted to wait to the holidays to surprise her family. So she waited about a month to come forward and claim her prize. Some people, like the winner today, the draw was last night, and they drove to Moncton and came forward right away. So that would completely depend. You do have 1 year from the draw date to come forward and claim your winnings.
That would be me. I'd be in the car right away driving across Confederation Bridge. So can you describe to me what it's like when you get to tell someone or confirm that you indeed are a $1 million winner?
Well, it's obviously very special. I always say that that's the reason why we come to work every day at the lottery is to meet winners and to see those prizes and those big checks being handed forward. The winners are usually pretty surprised. It's not something that happens to people very often. So they're usually still in shock. They sometimes can't believe it. And we have to, confirm to them that this is real, this is happening. And then the wheels just start spinning of how they're going to spend the money or what they're going to do, how this is going to change their life. I find with Atlantic Canadians, we're very, down to earth, humble, kind of modest people. And a lot of times people will say things that like, it's not really going to change my lifestyle too much because I'm just happy with the way things are now. I might buy a truck. I might get a new pair of shoes, but people usually have some pretty interesting stories.
Coming up, RCMP telecommunications centers across Canada are facing staffing shortages, with some having vacancies of more than 50%. Here on PEI, a patchwork of temporary solutions has now been fixed, according to an RCMP spokesperson. We'll bring you the details coming up on Compass. The Prime Minister and federal cabinet are meeting in Ontario tonight. The retreat is all about preparing for the return of Parliament. But the status of NAFTA renegotiations has tripped up some of Justin Trudeau's messaging. Hannah Thibodeau has the details.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's inner circle came to London, Ontario, hoping to focus on the country's strong fiscal performance.
Looking forward to great conversations about the economy, about jobs, about a broad range of issues facing Canadians.
The big question, what will happen to the economy if U.S. President Donald Trump follows through on his threat to pull out of NAFTA?
I think we need to take our neighbors at their word, take them seriously, and so Canada is prepared for every eventuality.
But no one will divulge details about that contingency plan. International Trade Minister François-Philippe Champagne says Canada won't be a pushover and cave in to unfair trade practices. Case in point, a 32-page complaint filed at the WTO this week fighting back against tariffs recently levied by the Trump administration on the Canadian forestry industry.
But I think the American colleagues also understand when you stand strong and sending a message that say we will stand up for the forestry industry, we will stand up for aerospace industry, we'll stand up for Canadian workers, you get respect. When people see that you're firm, you get respect.
Finance Minister Bill Morneau repeated that line, saying any deal must be in Canada's best interest.
What we are trying to achieve is an improvement in NAFTA. I know that that's better for Canada, and we'll continue down that path.
The next round of NAFTA talks will take place in Montreal at the end of January, and this round could be the deal breaker. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, London, Ontario.
The executive director of the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls has left her job just 3 months after taking it. Debbie Reed was named to the post in October. She was brought in after the previous executive director resigned. The troubled inquiry has seen a number of departures since the commissioners were first introduced in August of 2016, including one of the 5 commissioners. It's faced criticism on a number of fronts, including some that the inquiry wasn't doing enough to consult with victims' families about how the inquiry should operate. The federal government gave the inquiry a budget of almost $54 million and set a deadline for its work to be done by the end of 2018. Emergency dispatchers for the RCMP play a crucial role for officers on the job, but there is a shortage of those workers across the country. As Katie Nicholson reports, there are concerns that is putting some Mounties in a precarious position.
The RCMP's own recruitment ads give it away.
Most days we are busy. We are just flat out all day long.
This is one of the RCMP's Operational Communication Centers, or OCCs. The people who answer 911 calls here are considered a lifeline for Mounties in the field, providing them with important information about what they're about to face. But according to a longtime worker, widespread staffing shortages are putting the public and RCMP at risk.
We're running out of fumes now. It's life and death decisions, and there's only so much one person can do, you know? And when you have centers that should have 18, 19 people on a Friday night, and there's only 8 or 9 that are showing up, what's the impact there? Huge.
We're protecting the worker's identity because of a fear of reprisal for speaking out. Vacancy numbers obtained through an Access to Information request reveal in October of 2017 across the country, OCCs had a shortage averaging about 27%. In PEI and Nunavut, the rates are nearly double that, more than 50%. Rates in Quebec, Ontario, and New Brunswick weren't much better, more than 40%. Telecoms operators often face a high-stress environment with a high volume of calls, and the cascading effect of understaffing worries the National Police Federation.
That's the fear, I think, of every police officer, every telecommunications officer, is that they miss something that could result in a member of the public or a member of the RCMP getting hurt.
From its national headquarters in Ottawa, the RCMP sent us a statement saying its role is simply to establish standard national policies and procedures. Staffing is left to individual divisions. It also confirmed since 2016, workers filed 46 hazardous occurrence reports because they feared understaffing at the communications centers posed a safety risk.
RCMP and PEI, Nunavut and Manitoba have recruited staff to combat the shortage. They say public safety was never at risk. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Winnipeg.
So as you heard Katie Nicholson just say, PEI's vacancy rate for RCMP with telecommunications operators was more than 50% last year. RCMP say it was a lack of regular staff. They usually have 11 operators. A couple left for other jobs. 2 others were on extended leave. But the RCMP managed to pull together backfill from a variety of sources. They've recently filled the vacancies, but they say it was a worry last year.
I'll be honest, it certainly caused us some concern at the time because the OCC is such a critical lifeline, between the public and the officers on the road. So this is why we put the measures in place we did to, going as far as to get trained operators from Nova Scotia to cover some of the shifts.
The Royal Canadian Navy is making changes to appeal to younger recruits. The goal is to reverse a shortage of sailors that's gone on for over a decade. Murray Brewster has more.
Most of us in the civilian world take it for granted. The ability to pick up our phones, to FaceTime with family and friends, scroll the internet, and even check social media. It is not something sailors in the Canadian Navy can do unless their ship is pulled alongside a dock where they can snag a signal. That is about to change. The commander of the Navy, Vice Admiral Ron Lloyd, says they're now installing Wi-Fi hotspots on warships. It was something that used to be strictly prohibited for security reasons, but no more.
Like, there are other navies that are operating with NATO that have Wi-Fi in far more spaces than we do. And we're saying, no, you can't have it on board, period. That's crazy.
The Canadian Navy is perpetually short of sailors. In fact, it is down 500 bodies in terms of regular strength. One reason is some sailors spend an extraordinary length of time away from home. They complete one deployment, come home, move to another ship, and are gone again. So the Navy says it is now tracking each sailor, and it wants to make sure no one spends more than 180 days away from home in any given year. The Navy recently asked pollsters what it takes to be attractive to millennials, and these course corrections are a big part of that. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
A school in Halifax is taking big steps toward reconciliation with First Nations in Nova Scotia. The school used to be named after Edward Cornwallis. That's been changed. Now the school will start each day by acknowledging its traditional Mi'kmaq land, and that holds special meaning for one former student. Emma Smith reports.
Rebecca Moore's return was all about healing, for Mi'kmaq people and for her personally. The activist from Halifax says she was one of the few Mi'kmaq students to attend Halifax Central Junior High when it still bore the name Cornwallis. Edward Cornwallis, an English military officer who founded the city, issued a bounty on the head of Mi'kmaq people in 1749.
When I had to come to Cornwallis Junior High School, when other students were wearing Cornwallis across their chests everywhere I looked.
The school got rid of the Cornwallis name in 2012, and it's a move that Moore commended during her visit. She was there to read a Mi'kmaq land acknowledgement that she wrote. Students will now read those same words at the start of each day.
And it is my great honor to be the first to welcome you all formally to Mi'kmaq territory, the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
Last year, the Halifax Regional School Board announced every school in the district will begin their days with similar acknowledgements. But not all schools include language that Moore says is particularly important.
It's not just the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people, but it is the unceded, unsurrendered traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
Robert McMillan says his school will use those words.
I was delighted this morning that Rebecca was able to educate me on the word unceded.
Thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you.
I thought hearing that we were on Indigenous grounds, I thought it was very fascinating, and I thought that it was very important to know that, considering that we were once called Cornwallis Junior High and now we are not anymore.
The school is doing reconciliation right, says Moore, and she wants Halifax Municipal Council to pay attention and take down the statue that commemorates Halifax's controversial founder. Emma Smith, CBC News, Halifax.
Across Canada, regional airlines are cancelling flights, not because of weather or a lack of passengers. They're facing a shortage of trained pilots, and flight schools are struggling to find ways to fix the problem. Kyle Bax reports.
Sign up for flight school in Medicine Hat, and you'll hop in the cockpit with an instructor for many hours, taking off for trips around the southeast Alberta city. It's a good time to enroll in a flight school since a major problem is rising in the aviation world, a lack of pilots. Even here at Super T Aviation, it's tough to keep instructors from being hired away by airlines.
All of a sudden, it's kind of like the light came on with the Canadian airlines and said, oh geez, we're not getting the product that we used to, we're not getting the applications, we don't have any resumes. We have the shortage.
A combination of factors is causing the shortage, such as ever-increasing air travel by Canadians and a large number of pilots reaching retirement. National carriers are still able to find pilots since most pilots want to fly the big jets. It's the regional airlines that are struggling and have even had to cancel some flights because they're short of pilots. As a result, airlines could start increasing ticket prices and cut service to smaller airports.
If there's a shortage of pilots, then there'll be fewer planes flying. Fewer planes mean fewer routes. It has a major impact.
A soon-to-be-released report by an industry association says Canada could be short 6,000 pilots by 2036. At Super T, the flight school recently posted an instructor job position. After 3 weeks, no responses.
I truly believe that this is one of the major issues of the Canadian airline industry at this point.
Airlines have lowered their flight hour requirements for new recruits in an effort to meet the demand. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Medicine Hat.
Hockey Canada unveiled the team that will defend the Olympic men's hockey gold medal at the Pyeongchang Winter Games next month, but Canadian players from the NHL won't be taking part this time.
At the end of the day, these 25 men that are going to represent us are the right players. They've earned this spot. They're proud to be representing their country, and we're very proud of them because I feel that when we get to Pyeongchang, this team is going to make a lot of people proud.
Even without the NHL contingent, the team is full of professional players. Most of them play in leagues in places like Russia, Germany, or Switzerland. Some of them are in the minors, and a few even have NHL experience. Quick check of the markets now, where the dollar fell a quarter at 79.78 cents US. We did see the TSX climb about 39 points by the close, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed a whopping 205 points by the closing bell. Now to what's become a big discussion in a lot of workplaces lately, how to stop sexual harassment. It is an issue some PEI theaters say they're wrestling with right now, particularly after recent accusations of sexual harassment by 4 actors against well-known Canadian director Albert Schultz. Steve Bruce has our story tonight.
Blush, bronzer all over.
These Holland College performing arts students will cover a lot in their 2-year program, from stage makeup to singing and dancing. Another lesson in the curriculum, how to identify and deal with sexual harassment. Some students say, sadly, it's as important a lesson as any.
It's frustrating that on top of all the challenges that already sort of underlie a career in the arts, there's also having to worry about being a female in that industry and dealing with that kind of nonsense on top of it all. It's exhausting.
It's a problem that's been getting a lot of attention in recent months, particularly since 4 actors came forward alleging that for more than a decade they were sexually harassed by director Albert Schultz at Toronto's Soul Pepper Theatre. Soul Pepper has announced an immediate investigation into the allegations, and Schultz says he intends to vigorously defend himself.
Tends to be such common practice.
But actor Alicia Toner, a regular in the Charlottetown Festival, says the allegations highlight what's long been an issue in the industry: harassment, often hidden under the guise of art and generally unreported.
Because this is all contract work, it's about losing that next contract under, we didn't have anything for you this season, or we decided to go a different way, when really the reason is you were getting in the way and difficult to work with.
So how to tackle the problem? It's a question PEI theaters, big and small, are asking themselves. Andrea Zurich manages North Rustico's Watermark Theatre, Dean Constable, the Confederation Centre. Both theaters have harassment policies, but they both acknowledge that isn't enough.
It made me go back to the package that I give on the first day of anybody working at Watermark and realize that it's pretty vague. It talks about respect, it talks about if you have trouble, come to me, but it needs to be more robust.
I think that's an area to which we were working to strengthen, that people, how we roll it out and how we make sure people know what that policy is and how they can access help when they see something that is making them uncomfortable in the workplace.
Any place I've worked, policies are there, but they're not talked about.
Both theaters are getting some guidance through a new program developed for Canadian theaters called Not in Our Space. The 2 theaters plan to roll it out this spring.
It offers training for identification of what harassment is and also how to deal with the investigation, which I think is actually a really important part. We're not trained for that. We're theater people.
The fact theaters are talking openly about this issue has given students and actors in the industry at least some hope.
I think there has been a very palpable shift, and that women especially aren't going to go quietly. I think we're going to have more confidence speaking up.
It seems like people are at least taking initiative now to notice that there needs to be a change.
Steve Bruce, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Before we get to the last look at the weather, we want to talk about a common Christmas gift this year. It has a lot of people talking to inanimate objects. Gadgets like Google Home and Alexa were under many trees, and now developers are planning to have all sorts of devices and appliances operating on command. Kim Brunhooper reports on the latest at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
Vacuuming underneath the table right.
Sure, there are the robot maids and the glasses that allow the blind to see, but this is the future. That's right, a toilet that you can talk to, tell it to flush, or whatever you'd want to discuss with your commode.
And how much does this one run? The Numi Black will start at about $7,500. Wow.
The hottest thing in the world of technology these days is your voice.
You want a pizza, maybe?
Soon you'll be able to tell an almost infinite number of things what to do.
Open can.
Thousands of products at the world's largest tech convention respond to commands or are linked to voice assistants like Amazon's Alexa or Google Assistant. Industry analyst Ben Arnold says what he's seeing here is bringing us closer to the idea of ambient computing, in which all the electronics around us can sense us and respond to our needs.
It's more than just controlling technology products with your voice. It's really adding a layer of intelligence and getting technology products to work a little bit better into your life.
According to one estimate, by the end of this year, intelligent assistants will be in 1 million Canadian homes. But do you actually need to converse with all of your appliances? Probably not. With companies rushing to get on the voice tech bandwagon, in many cases they may be solving problems that don't exist.
You can have the voice-activated washer and dryer, but you still have to move the wet clothes, the wet clean clothes from the washer to the dryer, and why not just push start like you can do already?
I will get a drink. If it doesn't make what you're doing faster, better, or cheaper, then it's just a $7,000 toilet that listens. Kim Brunhooper, CBC News, Las Vegas.
I don't have Google Home here or Alexa, but hey Siri, where's Jay? Did it not work
again on my phone?
He's here.
Siri, where's Jay?
Which Jay?
Oh, it's my phone. Which Jay?
Doesn't even know you.
Doesn't even know
See,
me.
real people
Siri,
matter.
Hey, by the way, that toilet that talks to you, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
$7,000 toilet, though. Not sure I like. I like the price tag. All right,
Yeah.
Let's take a look at your day planner forecast for your Friday. And yes, tomorrow is Friday. Saturday could be the one to watch, though, really starting tomorrow night. But temperatures are going to continue to rise overnight. Generally, 7-8 degrees for 7 a.m. tomorrow morning across the island. We'll see winds gusting over 60 kilometers per hour, but it's out of the southwest, becoming more southerly late in the afternoon. We'll see temperatures tomorrow night between 10 and 12 degrees, but you can see that risk of showers by late afternoon. Some heavier rain will arrive much later in the day, late into the evening tomorrow, and we could get a good 25 to locally over 50 millimeters possible on Saturday with the ground still frozen. That could result in some water pooling and ponding on roads, some flooded basements. And there is that risk of freezing rain on Saturday. It's across the island. Right. I just think the highest potential for more than just a few hours of freezing rain. That could mean icy conditions on roads, maybe some power outages. At the moment, looks to be over Prince County, but do check back tomorrow for an
Yes, make sure you tune in tomorrow at 6 for more, and we'll give you the very latest on what the models are showing us then. Thanks for joining us on Compass tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow at 6. Good night, PEI.